in this new capacity, programming ecology. And one of the things that I know comes to mind very quickly when people hear ecology is this move to sort of equate ecology and environmentalism. Could you say something about what the similarity and difference is? Where does ecology end, environmentalism begin?
Well, I tell my students, I teach general ecology to undergraduates, and I think a lot of students don't really know what ecology is until they take this sort of class. And I emphasize to them on the first lecture that ecology is not environmentalism.
Okay.
And ecology is the science to understand how the natural world works. And environmentalism is a sort of a moral and an ethical view as to how we humans ought to interact with this world. I want them to understand the science of ecology, because it's only with that science that you can then use it to help make decisions later. And so ecology is just one of the environmental sciences that we can use to better manage. How we do that is, I think, a large degree of a political decision. And so I think we then, as citizens, as students who are going to take my class, and then as scientists like you and me, we should be spending our time thinking about how we can make sure that the best science is in the hand of the people who are going to be making these decisions.
Okay. So one of the things that we, as a society, would want out of ecology, right, is answers, right? Answers to what's going to happen if, what's going to happen when. So ecologists tell us what the consequences of climate change are. Tell us what the consequences of the arrival of a new weed or a new species is. Tell us what are the consequences of an oil spill is. But from what I can tell, ecologists oftentimes struggle, right, to make these sort of predictions, to make these sorts of forecasts. Is that asking too much of ecology, or?
I don't think it's asking too much of ecology at all. I think it's I think it's the holy grail. But we should also be recognized at what point we can and what time we can't predict. And so, for example, we cannot predict how the economic system is going to change over sometimes short and long time scales, yet we humans developed this economic system. Now, that doesn't mean we just are nihilists, just raise our hands and walk away from being predictive. We try to figure out the scope at which our predictions are going to be able to work, why they don't work, and then design our next studies to get them to be a little bit more predictive than they were before.
Well, another issue that kind of revolves around all of this is the relationship between science and society. And let's face it, some science is just plain esoteric. It's hard to figure out what was done, why it was done, and who cared. And political pundits and critics of science, you know, especially in these times of tight budgets, look at various titles and grant proposals and whatnot, and they say, well, that can't possibly be a good use of public funding. So they might look through a journal and find a title like this one: Linking Calcification by Exotic Snails to Stream Carbon Dioxide Cycling. And at that point, the naysayer sneers and says something like, so the scientists are telling us that it's the snails that are responsible for carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, or something snarky like that. Why would the public care about snails and carbon dioxide?
So we found a stream in Grand Teton National Park, Kelly Warm Springs, that has a tremendous population of exotic snails from aquarium releases. And the bottom of this is just covered with snails. And we thought, well, this is a perfect place to test this. And so the finding is that yes, these things can make these fluxes, but it's small relative to other ones. So no, the answer is they're not contributing to global climate change, but we need to know these things so that we can check it off our list as things to worry about at the very least. We believe they've altered the native invertebrate assemblage in that stream too, just because there's so many of them.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I think you've shed some powerful light on the line between science and politics, and perhaps we've come to a better understanding of the ways in which humans are increasingly a part of the story